Hello, welcome to another edition of Pathfinders for Autism Zoomcast. I am your host, Rob Long, and joining us today is the founder of Make Studio. She is Cathy Goucher. She's also the art therapy program director at Notre Dame University of Maryland. How are you doing this afternoon, Cathy?
I am well. Thank you for having me. It's fun to be here.
Thank you for your time today. Now, I want to get right to it. Art as therapy. To me, music is an art, definitely, and that's my therapy. What exactly is art therapy with you?
Absolutely. So art therapy is actually a 50-year-old profession. And you are correct in that there are other creative therapies that are also professions. Music therapy, dance therapy, poetry therapy, I could go on. But art therapy really is blending visual arts, understanding of materials and processes with visual arts and art materials with psychology and counseling training. So similar to music therapy, which blends understanding of the musical process, art therapy is blending understanding of that art process with that psychology and counseling training. But it's important to note that it's not just a sometimes blend, that art therapy is a technique, but rather art therapy, working with art, is our entire way of engaging our clients. So it's integral to what we're doing.
Are there certifications or licensing involved with teaching art as therapy?
For sure. Up until a couple of years ago, there was only a national certification, and art therapists worked for, it's a master's degree, and then would work for thousands of hours beyond post-grad in order to achieve their ATR-BC, which is the National Credential and Certification. But then in 2013, if memory serves, it's been a bit, we received a licensure in Maryland, which is really important because it protects the public and gives a real seal of approval on our training and what we've been doing or how we've been trained. And so we practice under the license of LCPAT. There's also a graduate license while you're earning that full clinical license. But that is the seal of assurance that an art therapist has a master's degree, has national credentialing, and is practicing art therapy. Without that license, buyer beware, it is not art therapy.
With art therapy, everything you do has some benefits, of course. What are the benefits of art therapy?
Well, it's naturally rewarding, right? We all want to be self-expressive. And so there's pleasure in exploring and using sensory materials and physicality to see yourself in the world, right? To put something that was inside, outside, and be able to see that and share that with someone. So that's a huge benefit and really important for the folks that on the autism spectrum, right? That invitation to take something that's inside, doesn't have words necessarily, bring it out and show someone. So there's this wonderful connection that happens. There's an intrinsic enjoyment of that process. There's also a practicing of problem-solving skills and communication, verbal communication skills can certainly be and should be brought into that process. The showing, the looking at together. Tolerating a shared space, the studio environment, and someone else in that process with you. And yeah, I think there's also a huge value to that process of bringing something that was inside out and connecting that part of the brain that's sensory and visual with language and meaning making, and doing that in the company of another. So
that's great, Cathy. You just basically, I guess it should be common sense, but I never realized until you just said it that this is a level of communication. But someone may not be able to communicate verbally, or maybe not know how to articulate it. They can do it through art therapy.
Absolutely, and similarly, can do it through music. can do it through dance and movement. So there are affinities, and art therapy, because of that, isn't for everyone, that physicality of the art engagement. But yes, absolutely.
All right, paint me a picture here. No, no pun intended.
Love it.
What does an art therapy session look like?
Well, it depends. So there can be individual art therapy and there could be group format. In an individual session, well, let me also paint the picture, so to speak then, of the studio. So the studio, there's an intention with which the classroom or the studio space is set up, with materials accessible and the invitation to explore those materials, right? So we have a wide range of materials. Individual sessions, I really encourage clients to start with processes that they're used to, that they enjoy, art making, that they're coming to that experience from a place of knowing this is how I like to work. And then I sort of use that as a means to explore their narrative, to get them comfortable, to build trust and relationship, and then to help expand the communication or the tolerance for trying new materials.
Right.
Or, hey, I love the way you're doing that. Had you ever tried this? So that type of thing. With groups, they tend to be one of two ways. I've run parallel process groups, which really provide the opportunity for students, clients to work at the same time on different projects, and then note each other's process at the end or as we're going along, problem solving and sharing materials. But sometimes the other way of working would be more of a thematic group. So that could be, you know, any range of themes depending on the collection of clients.
What skills are addressed on art therapy?
Well, it's interesting. The word skills is so loaded, I think, because skills to me presents a meaning of like instruction, like I'm trying to advance kind of their aesthetic skills. That's a lovely side benefit. If their aesthetic skills and their products become more refined or more exciting aesthetically as an art piece to them, great. But my primary focus in skill development is really self-expression, certainly
Right.
language skills and development, social skills, problem-solving skills. So more of those kinds of skills rather than attainment of art skills. So that's an important caveat with art therapy.
Now I remember, okay, I give an example of my son. He went through speech therapy, and that was an individual thing. But there are also things that are therapeutic done through groups. Is art therapy individual or is it a group therapy session?
Well, there's both. As I said before, I think there's value in both too. And certainly I have had some students that I worked with previously who were having both, who maybe were working individually with me, but were also in groups that were thematically focused in a certain way. They needed to work on specifically social skills. And I worked with the SLP on with social skill attainment and social stories and type of thing. So absolutely, they can have both. They could have individual or group. It just really depends on the setting. You know, whether it's school-based, whether it's individual, you know, therapist in the community, and what they're offering.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is it individual or group? As you said, is it based on the need of the individual? Okay.
Absolutely.
How do you determine that?
In the school setting, it was based on IEP and counseling IEP, actually. And I was one of a related service team that thought together about what does the student need and how might we best address their overall IEP counseling goals. And so art therapy was a part of that mix, whether it be individual or group. In the community, art therapists have put together time-limited social skill groups or a theme-based group, a friendship group, that type of thing, and also provide individual therapy depending on need. And that's really addressed then with the parent, certainly, engaging with the parent directly around what are we talking here? What do we want to achieve? And then certainly engaging the client too, him or herself, to his or her ability to be able to speak to, I want to make this, or I want to work in this direction. And if not, to honor where they are with, this is the type of art I like to make, even if they're not verbalizing that. These are the, 55 pictures of a certain type of thing that I like to make. Well, that's where we're starting. So it's really a collaborative process in the individual.
Typically, how long are the sessions? How long do they last?
It really depends too. I've had some in this realm, or in this virtual situation that we're in. I mean, I've had sessions that are 15 minutes because of, the limitations of this platform. But in real life, as we had been months ago, they're usually 35, 45, or an hour, depending.
Okay, so
and that's another, determination with the family. Also, maybe a process of figuring that out. Certainly with I'm looking for, how much are they engaged in the actual art making and invested in sustaining that time of making, and then sustaining engagement with me. And so I'm looking for that, and then working from there.
Okay, Cathy, someone is going to an art therapy session. Is there times when, or is it normal to have maybe take-home assignments, things that each patient can do at home?
That sounds like homework. There are therapies that do that. The first one that comes to mind is more of a cognitive behavioral therapy, or a CBT. Right. I am not inclined to do that. However, if there's an investment in working on a piece, right, and they don't want to leave it in the studio and they want to take it home and they want to continue to work on it, fabulous. Go for it. But bring it back, and then we can either continue to work on it, or we can look together at what you did and we can celebrate that, and then we can figure out where we're going to go from there. So it's not so much homework. It's like they're so excited about working on it and invested that I'm happy to support that process and point out the obvious, that they may continue working on it.
Now, we're associated with Pathfinders for Autism. How do organizations like Pathfinders for Autism, how is it beneficial to you?
Just like this, providing these educational platforms, and with really thoughtful, different media points. So in-person workshops, print materials, online media opportunities to, get a snapshot of a service. Right. I think that and trainings that you offer are just fantastic. And we are so lucky in Maryland to have Pathfinders for Autism.
Now, how long have you been associated with them?
I've been an art therapist for 24 years, I think now. And I've known of Pathfinders for the greater part of that. Gosh, I mean, I'd say 12 years at least, if not longer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, do you get, I guess, kids or students, I guess the best to call them, on all different ends of the spectrum for art therapy?
Yes. So, and that really then is a process of figuring out, because I have worked with nonverbal students, I have worked with, highly verbal individuals. And art therapy, it's the same in terms of what I'm there to do and support, those same skills and those same goals that we're working toward. But it's just being comfortable with the quiet, or being comfortable with the behavioral support in order to maximize that individual's ability to engage with the materials. So it's really, yes, I guess the short answer is yes. Absolutely, art therapy can work with, and an art therapist can work with anyone at any level on the spectrum, but it's a matter of figuring out those goals and how to best support that individual during those initial sessions.
Cathy Goucher, thank you very much for your time. I will assure you, when this is all said and done, I will go and tell my daughter to enroll in your class. What was that class again? I
would love to have your daughter. It's in Introduction to Art Therapy. It's open to all majors at Notre Dame of Maryland University. It's actually open to all of our consortium colleges of which we are a part. So hoping to get even more students, you know.
She's a nursing major. I'll tell her she never knows what nursing will take her. She may want to take that class.
Absolutely. I would love to have her.
Cathy, thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you.